What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about the debate of gaming journalists, getting paid off to review games. This was something that was sparked, I believe, a few days ago, I guess, depending on when you guys see this video, on Twitter, I believe over Forza Horizon, but it made a really big splash in the the gaming journalist hive mind that is them. Now I should probably start this off by saying a couple things. I've never been, and nor am I now, a fan of gaming journalists. Okay, I think they're pretty there are some good ones, but I would say most of the time I just I have no really even respect for a lot of the people. They don't seem like good people to me from the interactions I've had, and just from a lot of other angles, but we've talked about that in the past. With that being said, I'm not going to just, this isn't a video of just bashing to bash. I really do want to make this a discussion because this is something that I think is as old as, media itself, is as old as getting these review codes of games or, press for movies. It's as old as when it started, the basic, saying conspiracy theories probably immediately comes off the wrong way, but the idea that when these people, and for this, video and the purposes of the video, when they get a game code, right, to review and they publish their review, what goes on kind of behind the scenes, right? One of the main things that's always been said very, I'd say harshly, but at least to the point from gaming journalists is no, there's not anything that to look at behind the scenes. There's absolutely nothing there. They get the code, but they aren't paid one way or another to do anything, with the code in terms of, writing good things about it, writing bad things. And, you'll have people say, well, when we write bad things, this is always their argument to it. When we write bad things, we give games bad reviews, the relationship with the publisher doesn't, immediately fall apart. It's not destroyed. We get more games, after that. The relationship isn't tarnished. And I've always been unsure about the entire thing. I'll be flat out honest. I've never bought in either way to they're completely paid off or they're completely innocent. I've never once thought either of them. I've always operated in a little bit of a middle period to it. I guess even going off of that beaten road, I've always said, okay, this is just my opinion. These are just my words, okay? And that's all it is. I've always thought, and even you could say this to myself, by the way, too. Okay, you could say this is an issue with just anybody, not even just these quote-unquote, gaming journalists, who all do think the same and they all do act the same, granted. But, when they get a code, or even when I get a code, right, there is, I believe, something in your head that changes. When you are receiving things for free and they're giving it to you, there's almost like a feeling inside you where it's like, well, what do I do with this, right? They gave it to me for free. There's people on the other side of it. You want to keep that relationship. And that's always been where I've operated. I think it honestly works a lot more. I think it's more prominent in the movie industry more than the games, where like the movie industry, especially like that first wave of critic reviews, the ones that come out sometimes like almost a month before the movie comes out, those people are a privileged, let's not pretend, let's not BS, right? They're a privileged class of, media, and they are there for a reason. Like, you're handpicked to be in that first, if you see it before literally anybody else, even before some of your other media colleagues, you're there for a reason. Again, not to sugarcoat it, right? And I do think whether or not they say good or bad things, there's something in your head where it's like, I want to stay in this class. I want to be here. Now, whether it's the person that thinks that or maybe who they work for, right? Because a lot of them have like publications. That I do think is a little bit different. But, I guess it's different from the movie industry to the games, but also the games industry from these mega media corporations, IGN, Kotaku, these guys, and also, say, YouTubers, say, like, even somebody like me. You also have to think about the relationship between publication and the actual games, the people that are making these games. I don't even think it has anything to do with, and again, because it's always what they'll say, well, when you give a game a bad score, just throw out like X game. We don't even have to give the game a name, right? When they give X game a bad score from whatever, publisher, they'll say, well, it never stops them from giving us, the next one, or, even like bad press is sometimes like good press. But I do think there's something there with consistently doing it. And also the fact that you're not just doing it for the game itself or the next game that comes after it. You're also doing it to remain in that world. Now, to get a little bit off of the, not that I really stay on topics very well, but to get a little bit off of the topic, and this is something that really everyone in the games industry ignores and just pretends doesn't happen, what I'm really getting at here is this bubble that they live in. Now, I've always been very, very, pushy on this bubble and always been very like, hey, look, there it is. Like, it's right in front of your faces. And I think that, to me, is the biggest thing. I do mean it when I say it. All these people are exactly the same. Sure, they have different names. Sure, they sometimes look different, but they really are the same people, okay? That's why they're called a hive mind, and I really do believe that. And I think the evidence, if you go looking for it, because it's not really, just right there in front of your face, although sometimes it is so apparent and evident that if you go against, if you're just a free thinker, or you're literally just somebody that doesn't say, think, do exactly what the conglomerate that is this, games journalist media is, and not just the games journalist media, but also the game developers and the game publishers. That's a big, important thing. If you're not in that group, right? If you're not in that cool kids group, you're kicked out. There's numerous examples of journalists that have been kicked out, that don't fit, they don't fit, they go against the grain just a little bit, and they are literally blacklisted from the entire thing, okay? So to me, that's why I operate in this little, I operate, I guess, in daily life in this area, but for this discussion, do they get paid off? Like, do they sneak them $500 with the newest copy of Call of Duty Vanguard? No, okay? I've never once thought that they come with, like, an additional, like, bonus to give them an 8 or higher, on their site. I don't think that happens. I don't think that's ever happened. I don't think that ever will happen. But are they completely innocent? Literally, mentally in their own head, is there nothing influencing day-to-day decisions that they do? No, I don't think that's true either. I think it's somewhere in between. Maybe it doesn't come out in one specific review for one specific game, but I do think it plays out with the general attitude that these journalists give to games, to developers, to each other. That's what I think, because I do believe very, very highly that if you are not part of the group, if you do not act like part of the group, you are not in the group, and you will be kicked out faster than you can ever imagine. So that, in my opinion, and maybe that doesn't answer literally anything, and I'm sorry about that. It's an interesting thing, because what I guess, and I'm not going to say names because I don't want to, get into that kind of stuff, but I think whenever it's brought up, that's one of the main things I think is the most interesting about it, is whenever you bring even up the discussion, and I do get it, it's harsh. If you go up to, just say, some random, employee at IGN, and you say, hey, you paid off, like, writing your reviews, like, that comes across, it would come across the same way as if you said it to me. You know what I mean? If you say, Alex, you sometimes, and by the way, I don't get many game codes whatsoever, and I do my absolute best to literally not have it dictate, what I think about a game whatsoever. My opinion of it, I try to keep literally consistent as humanly possible, right? It doesn't matter if I get the code or not. And again, by the way, I don't get too many codes. But, I do think if you come to somebody, me, IGN employee, whatever, and you say, hey, you paid off, then you're kind of aggressive, then that person's going to be aggressive. So I do understand it, but I do think the basic idea is whenever this even discussion is brought up, mainly on Twitter, and Twitter is hell on earth, but when you bring it up to these people, they flip out. They flip out, and they go so far to denying it that they also deny that, like, anything else, nothing happens. Like, they're just the most clean individuals possible. There's just these amazing relationships that also aren't related to, like, anything. You know what I mean? So it's very odd to me that they get so, and again, that could just be how I read it. I get defensive if people go after me. I'm not a perfect individual. I've never pretended to be some perfect, icon. I get upset, if people call me out to something I think is, like, unfair or not right. I'll get upset. That I think that I don't think that's an unfair human emotion, but I think they just go so far, and then, like, everybody comes in. You know what I mean? Like, if somebody makes fun of my voice, number one, I don't actually get upset because everybody does it, but, I don't, like, call in my nearest 10 friends to, like, come in for support. The funny thing about this stuff is when that does happen, and maybe you could argue, well, it's this conspiracy that has to do with, like, all of gaming media, everybody just comes into the party. You know what I mean? You can go after one employee for maybe You know, like, were you influenced in any way? Like, getting that code, is there something in your head where you're like, well, I want to keep the relationship we have, or maybe something with my boss, or, you know, like anything. Is there anything that influences that score that you give? And I think the answer is a little bit more tricky and difficult than just a yes or no. You know what I mean? That they would say. So when you ask those things and then they just bring in everybody, you know what I mean? They just bring in every gaming journalist under the sun to defend them. I mean, that happens, and that's how you, I think, know there's something, I do believe, something that does go on. Because these people do this all the time. If you go after, not even go after, going after sounds like you're attacking, right? Commonly, and this happens across like all of Twitter, across all of gaming journalists, even like media journalists, if you criticize what one person has to say, then odds are that person, especially if they're a certain kind of person, will go out, get every single one of their friends to back them up on Twitter. That happens, I mean, I've seen it many, many times with like Colin Moriarty or Sophia Narwitz. Neither of them are toxic, horrible, like garbage individuals, especially in my opinion, Colin, but, you know, I don't have to single out Sophia. They're both fine. But, you know, and you have either of them say, criticize, or even like David Jaffe, if they criticize somebody, all of a sudden it's a war, and all of a sudden the person that they're criticizing for something maybe very valid needs to get everybody under the sun to help defend them. And to me, it's like you maybe don't need to do that unless you're either very insecure or you are hiding something. You know what I mean? Like, or maybe like they struck a chord, like they're actually, you know, telling the truth, or maybe something is right there, right? You could argue that just by even saying something back, again, you could even use me as an example, right? Somebody criticizes me, I come back at them, maybe that immediately signals like something that they said to me was true because it struck. I don't think it's always that case, right? But also a couple differences. Number one, I don't think it happens every single time, whereas with these journalists, every single time this is what happens. And number two, I don't call everybody I know to help defend me, right? Whereas them, that's like the first thing they do. They get on their phone, they send like a mass whatever, and then everybody's there to back them up. It seems pretty weird. So I know this has gone kind of a little bit different than just, you know, gaming reviews, but I think flat out honest, it's because it's only part of the problem. I do think there's more to it than just a very simple yes or no. And again, like if somebody in the gaming media were to see this, they probably would say, no, it is as simple as it's just a no. I don't believe you. I don't. Not that you have said anything, the gaming media, not that they've ever done anything that like instills trust in them. I mean, that's another thing too, right? They lie and deceive and just back each other up and all think and all do the exact same thing. How are you supposed to trust them or believe them? Like, are you kidding me? So you couple all of that stuff together, and it's like, yeah, I mean, I think there is a little bit of a gray area there, but I also think it plays a part of just a bigger thing where it's not just gaming reviews. It's not just giving Call of Duty a 6 versus a 7. I think it's also the way of how they react and back each other up and only talk about certain things and not talk about other things, or go investigate some things and not investigate other things. That's the bigger thing. The reviews are just a small part of that. So that's my opinion. Maybe nobody found this, you know, fun or entertaining. I sure did, though. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Make sure, as always, you guys are subscribed if you did like this stuff. Hit the bell icon so you guys know when all these videos go up. If you want to support me anywhere else, I mean, I do have a Twitter. Again, it is hell on earth, but my Twitter community is very, very good. You can follow me there, subscribe to my second channel, or if you guys want to support us on Patreon or YouTube memberships, links for all of them are in the description below. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all on the next video.